She was ready to forgive until she heard how he justified it. The wind whispered through the crumbling towers of Castle Darath, carrying with it the faint scent of rain and the distant roar of the sea. Lady Alara stood at the edge of the castle balcony, her hands gripping the cold stone as though it could anchor her against the storm inside her heart. Years had passed since she had left this place, fleeing not just from the castle but from the man who had once held her trust, and she had thought her heart. Yet here she was, drawn back like a moth to a flame she did not trust. The corridors of the castle were as silent as a tomb, save for the echo of her boots against the marble floors. Shadows stretched long under the dim torchlight, and the walls seemed to remember her footsteps, whispering secrets she had once known. Every corner, every faded tapestry told a story of power, of loss, and of betrayal, and at the center of it all was Kale. Kale, who had once been her closest confidant, her partner in laughter and dreams, had betrayed her in ways she still could not forgive. And yet the rumors had reached her even before her arrival. Kale had changed. There were whispers that the kingdom itself teetered on the edge of disaster, and that his actions, however cruel, had been meant to protect it. Alara tightened her cloak against the chill. She had come here not as a lady of Darath, but as a seeker of truth. She would face Kale, she promised herself, but only if she could withstand the storm of her own emotions. Could she forgive a man whose betrayal had cut so deep, whose justifications might sound like poison in her ears? The first sight of him stole her breath. Kale stood at the edge of the grand hall, framed by towering windows that let the silver light of the moon fall upon him. He had not changed much, tall, commanding, the same sharp features that had once made her heart leap. But there was a weight in his stance, a shadow behind his eyes that was new. It was not arrogance or pride. It was the mark of a man who had carried burdens too heavy for any mortal to bear. "Alara," he said softly, his voice steady yet low, as if speaking too loudly would shatter something delicate between them. She did not answer immediately. Instead, she studied him, noting the lines etched into his face, the faint scar along his jaw, the way his eyes lingered on hers with a mixture of longing and regret. "You shouldn't have come back," she finally said, her voice calm but cold like ice over a river that once ran warm. Kale's lips pressed into a thin line. "I knew you would, I always knew you would," her brow furrowed. "And yet you did not stop me." "I did not stop you," he admitted, "because I feared what I might lose if I did. Not you, Alara, the kingdom. I feared losing everything to the curse." Alara's heart twisted at his words. She had heard the rumors of a curse that had plagued the royal family for generations, of sacrifices made in darkness, of choices no one could understand. Yet to hear him speak of it as if it excused the past, the betrayal, the lies, stung like fire. Kale stepped closer, though not so close as to invade her space. "I have no excuse, not in the way you might want to hear, but everything I did to protect you, to protect this land." Her eyes narrowed. "Protect me? By lying? By leaving me to believe that you abandoned me willingly?" He shook his head. "No, by surviving, by making the choices that no one else could make. You were never meant to bear the weight of those decisions, Alara." Silence fell between them, heavy and charged. Alara wanted to speak, to hurl accusations, to demand answers, but the storm of emotions inside her held her tongue. She remembered the nights she had spent awake, thinking of him, wondering if he thought of her. Remembering the warmth of his hand in hers, the way he had looked at her when he believed no one else was watching. And yet, betrayal was not so easily forgotten. "I came back to understand," she said finally, her voice barely above a whisper. "I came back to see if there was any truth in the stories I heard. But I find you now, and I see a man who hides behind justifications. You speak of protection, Kale, but what of trust? What of love?" Kale's expression faltered. For a moment the strong, unyielding prince she had feared and despised was gone, replaced by a man raw with regret. "I loved you, Alara," he admitted, his voice breaking. I still do. I love you enough to make choices you could never understand. Choices that have haunted me every day since I made them. Her chest tightened. The longing she had tried to suppress rose like a tide, threatening to drown her. She wanted to believe him, to allow herself to forgive. Yet the words that lingered in her mind, the ones she had whispered in the dark of her lonely nights, reminded her of the pain he had caused. "You don't get to demand forgiveness," she said, her tone sharper now, slicing through the quiet. "Not after what you did. Not after the lies, the absence, the silence." Cale looked down, the weight of his guilt pressing upon him. "I do not demand it. I only ask for a chance to explain, to make you see the truth behind my actions." Alara's hands clenched into fists at her sides. She wanted to walk away, to flee from the memories and the temptation, but something deep inside her, held her in place. Perhaps it was curiosity. Perhaps it was the faint spark of hope she refused to admit existed. "Very well," she said finally, her voice trembling despite her effort to remain steady. "Explain." Cale led her through the corridors, past the grand dining hall and into the library, a place that had once been their sanctuary of secrets and whispered plans. The room smelled of old parchment and candle smoke, comforting yet suffocating. He gestured toward a large table where ancient scrolls and books lay scattered. "The curse," he began, "has haunted our family for generations. Every ruler has faced it and many have failed. I made a pact with powers I could not fully control, a dark magic that promised safety for the kingdom but demanded sacrifice. I chose to carry that burden alone, to spare you and the people." Alara stared at him, her mind racing. The man she had loved had walked a path she could not even imagine, one filled with danger and torment, all for the sake of protecting her. Yet the ache of betrayal still throbbed in her chest. "And the lies?" she asked softly. "The letters I never received. The nights you were absent." Cale's eyes glimmered with unshed tears. "I lied to protect you. Every word I withheld, every night I was gone, it was because I feared for your life. I feared that knowing the truth would place you in danger beyond measure." Her throat tightened. She wanted to scream, to demand that he undo the past with words alone. Yet the vulnerability in his eyes, the raw, unpolished honesty, stirred something inside her. "You ask me to forgive," she said finally, her voice breaking, "but how can I forgive a man who believes his own justifications can erase the hurt?" Cale reached out, hesitated, then let his hand fall. "I do not expect forgiveness, only understanding. And perhaps a chance to prove that love can survive even the darkest of betrayals." Alara turned away, her gaze drifting to the rain-streaked windows. She felt the old ache of longing, the pull of memories and the weight of anger. She wanted to forgive, to bridge the gap between them, but she could not yet. Not when the echoes of the past were so loud, not when the words, "I did it to protect you," felt both like a balm and a blade. The silence stretched, filled with all the things neither dared to say aloud. And then, as if the castle itself had conspired to test her resolve, a distant bell tolled, its mournful sound cutting through the night. Cale's hand hovered near hers, not touching, not yet daring to bridge the distance. "Alara," he whispered, voice thick with pain and hope, "I will wait. I will endure whatever it takes to earn your trust again. Only do not turn away before hearing the truth fully." Alara's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. She wanted to flee, to escape the castle and the man who had once been her world, but some invisible thread bound her here. Perhaps it was curiosity. Perhaps it was the faint, stubborn flicker of love she had thought long extinguished. The wind moaned outside, the storm gathering strength, and Alara knew she had crossed the threshold into a world where forgiveness and betrayal danced together, where love was both a weapon and a shield. She was ready to seek the truth, yet she feared what the truth might demand of her heart. And in that silence, filled with unspoken apologies and aching longing, the first seed of possibility was planted, one that would grow, entwining their fates, even as the shadows of the past threatened to consume them both. The night was thick with mist as Lady Alara walked through the castle gates, the torches flickering and casting dancing shadows along the cobblestones. She did not know where Kale had gone after their tense meeting in the library, but instinct pulled her toward the forest beyond the castle. Legend spoke of that cursed woodland, a place where the trees whispered secrets of the past, and where no sound came without meaning. She had walked these paths as a child, chasing the wind and laughter, but tonight the forest felt alive in a different way, watching her, testing her, revealing her every doubt. She pulled her cloak tighter around her shoulders, feeling the dampness settle into her bones. "Are you certain you wish to enter?" a soft voice said. Elara spun, startled, and found herself facing a tall figure shrouded in a gray robe, a hood covering most of his face. The court seer had insisted on accompanying her, though Elara had agreed reluctantly. "I need answers," Elara said, her voice firm though her heart trembled. "I need to see the truth behind Kale's actions." The seer nodded. "The forest will show you what you must see, but beware. The truth is rarely gentle." With that warning hanging in the air, they stepped into the trees. The forest seemed to close around them, branches twisting overhead like the fingers of unseen beings. Shadows stretched long, and a faint silver glow shimmered along the moss-covered ground. Each step Alara took seemed to echo with whispers, voices she could not identify, yet which spoke directly to her heart. "You are searching for understanding," the seer said, "but you must be ready to face what lies beneath the surface. Not all choices are as black and white as they appear." Alara nodded, though doubt gnawed at her. Could she truly separate the man she loved from the actions that had wounded her so deeply? Could she forgive a betrayal rooted in secrets and curses? They walked in silence until they reached a clearing bathed in pale moonlight. There, the forest seemed to hold its breath, and the air shimmered like heat over stone. The seer extended his hands, murmuring words in a language Alara did not know. Slowly the mist in the clearing coalesced, forming shapes, visions of the past floating like smoke. Alara's eyes widened. She saw Kale, younger, standing before a dark figure cloaked in shadows, the very curse that had haunted the kingdom for generations. The figure's voice was like ice, demanding promises and sacrifices, and Kale's face was twisted in anguish. Yet in his hands, Alara saw evidence of care. Herbs, scrolls, charms, all meant to protect someone or something. "He was making a choice," Alara whispered almost to herself. "A choice to protect me," the seer nodded. "And yet each choice carried a cost. The weight of duty often hides in the shadows of the heart." The visions shifted. She saw Kale in moments of solitude, the pain in his eyes as he wrote letters he never sent, traveled on nights he could have stayed by her side, whispered to the wind her name when he thought no one listened. Each scene pulled at her heart, twisting it with longing and confusion. "Do you see now?" the seer asked gently. "The truth is not simple, Lady Alara. It is layered in shadow and light. He did not act from malice, but from fear and from love that he could not fully express." Tears pricked at Alara's eyes. She wanted to run into the clearing and embrace him, to forgive him in a moment of desperate need. And yet, a voice inside reminded her that forgiveness was not a gift to be given lightly. Trust, once broken, was fragile and slow to heal. Suddenly, a rustle of leaves announced another presence. Kale stepped into the moonlight, his silhouette both commanding and weary. His eyes, reflecting the silver glow, were fixed on her, and for a heartbeat the world fell silent around them. "Alara," he said, his voice low, almost a whisper, "you shouldn't be here. This forest, it is dangerous even for those with courage." "I am not a child," she replied sharply, though the tremor in her voice betrayed her fear. "I am here to understand you, Kale. To understand why you chose the path you did." He took a step closer, and she could feel the tension radiating from him. "Understanding may bring clarity or it may bring pain," he warned. "The forest does not forgive, and neither does the past." She swallowed hard, trying to steady her voice. I am willing to face it. I must know the truth. Kale's expression softened, a mixture of relief and sorrow crossing his face. Then you must see what I saw, what I endured. Only then can you judge me, not as the man who betrayed you, but as the man who fought against forces he could not control, all to keep you safe. The mist thickened, and the forest seemed to grow darker, yet in that darkness visions appeared. Alara saw Kale negotiating with shadowy creatures, bargaining with forces that whispered promises of power and doom. She saw him torn between saving the kingdom and protecting her, his face haunted by the impossible choices laid before him. You made sacrifices, she whispered, so many sacrifices for me, for all of them. Kale's voice trembled, as if the forest itself had stripped away his armor. I carried the weight alone because I knew you could not bear it. I believed that keeping secrets, living with lies, was the only way to survive and protect what we hold dear. Her chest ached. Every vision, every scene drew her closer to understanding, yet the pain of absence and silence remained raw. And the nights you left me, the letters I never received, were those also sacrifices? Yes, he said quietly, but not for the reasons you thought. I feared the curse would reach you if I spoke the truth. I feared the kingdom would fall if I failed. I feared losing you entirely. For a long moment, neither spoke. The forest seemed to hold its breath, listening to the unspoken tension between them. Alara felt the old warmth of love stir, mingled with the bitterness of betrayal. She wanted to forgive him, yet a part of her recoiled from the truth of what had been hidden. Kale stepped closer, and she could see the toll of his choices etched into his features. I do not ask for your forgiveness, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I ask only for your understanding, and if you can, perhaps for the chance to rebuild what I destroyed. Alara's eyes filled with tears she refused to release. She wanted to reach out, to let her anger fall away, to grasp the possibility of reconciliation. Yet the past lingered like a shadow, reminding her that trust is fragile and redemption is earned, not demanded. The forest grew quieter, the mist thickening around them. Kale held her gaze, waiting, the weight of the years and choices heavy between them. Then a sudden cry pierced the night, a sound not of the living, but of spirits bound by anger and sorrow. The ground trembled slightly, and the mist shifted, forming shapes that seemed to reach for Alara. Kale moved instinctively, stepping in front of her, his hands raised as if to ward off the unseen threat. The forest tests us, he said, his voice strained. It reveals what we fear most, our regrets, our failures, the shadows of our own hearts. You must face them, Alara. If you wish to understand, you must not turn away now. Her breath caught in her throat. The shadows were everywhere, swirling and twisting, showing glimpses of her own doubts and fears. The anger she had carried, the loneliness of years, the betrayal that had cut her deeply. And yet, among them, she saw a vision of Kale standing firm against the darkness, his eyes never leaving hers, as if silently promising that he would endure any storm to protect her. She took a shaky step forward, then another until she was standing beside him, their hands brushing ever so slightly. The contact, brief and electric, seemed to steady her. She realized that while the forest revealed fears, it also revealed courage, courage to face the past, courage to confront the truth, courage to see the man she had once loved in a new light. The spirit seemed to retreat as if satisfied that the test was passed, and the mist thinned. The forest, though still alive with mystery, grew calmer. Kale lowered his hands, his gaze never leaving hers. You have seen the truth, he said softly. Not all of it is easy, and not all of it will bring peace, but now you know why I acted as I did. Alara's heart raced, filled with conflicting emotions, anger, sorrow, longing, and a fragile hope. I do not know if I can forgive you yet, she admitted, her voice trembling. But I want to understand, that much I do know. Kale nodded, a faint shadow of relief crossing his features. Then we take it one step at a time. Nothing can be rushed. Trust, like healing, must grow slowly. The forest seemed to hum in approval, the trees swaying gently as if acknowledging the fragile reconciliation beginning to form. Yet the air was still heavy with unspoken fears, for the curse that haunted Kale and the kingdom had not yet revealed its full power. And as they began the walk back toward the castle, Alara felt a sense of anticipation and dread mingling in her chest. She had glimpsed the truth behind Kale's choices, yet she could not ignore the shadow that still loomed, both in the forest and in their hearts. The castle of Dareth was no longer the quiet, shadowed place Alara had returned to. Rumors of unrest had reached her even before she arrived. The kingdom trembled on the edge of war, whispers of rebellion and betrayal spreading like wildfire. The curse that Kale had fought against for so long still lingered, not as a memory but as a threat, its shadow stretching over every noble, every soldier, and every heart in the kingdom. Alara walked through the grand hall, her fingers brushing over the cold stone of the walls. She had returned from the forest, her mind full of the visions she had seen, Kale's sacrifices, his hidden suffering, his relentless struggle against darkness. She had come closer to understanding him, yet understanding did not erase the sting of betrayal. Not yet. Kale awaited her in the council chamber, his figure framed by the evening light pouring through the tall windows. He looked tired, the weight of his choices evident in the slight slump of his shoulders. Yet the determination in his eyes was unwavering, a fire that had not dimmed despite everything he had endured. "Alara," he said softly as she entered, "you have seen the truth. I only hope it has not burdened you further." She hesitated, her hands gripping the edge of the table. "I have seen much, Kale. I understand more than I did. But understanding does not make it easy to forgive. Not yet. Not after all that has passed." Kale nodded, accepting her words without complaint. "I do not expect forgiveness. Only a chance to prove that the man you once loved is still here, despite the darkness I carry." The council chamber doors opened suddenly, and a messenger rushed in, bearing a sealed letter stamped with the mark of the neighboring kingdom. Kale broke the seal and read silently, his expression hardening with every word. "They are preparing to march," he said finally, his voice tense. "The neighboring lords see weakness in Dareth. They believe the curse has weakened us. If we do not act swiftly, the kingdom could fall." Alara stepped closer. "Then we fight?" she asked, though her voice trembled. The thought of war, of danger, and of the lives at stake made her chest tighten. "Yes," Kale said firmly, "but not just with swords. We must protect the people, the kingdom, and each other. The curse, it may have weakened the land, but it has not weakened our resolve." Over the following days, Alara and Kale worked together, planning strategies, meeting with allies, and preparing for the challenges ahead. Each moment spent in his presence was charged with tension, a mixture of fear, longing, and unspoken words. Every glance, every brush of their hands, carried memories of the past and questions about the future. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and painted the sky with streaks of crimson and gold, Kale found Alara alone in the library, reading a report from one of the scouts. He approached quietly, his shadow falling across the open pages. "You are working too hard," he said softly, though his tone carried concern more than accusation. Alara looked up, meeting his eyes. "There is much to do. The kingdom cannot wait while we dwell on the past." Kale nodded, though a hint of sadness lingered in his gaze. "And yet the past follows us, Alara. It shapes every decision, every step we take. Even now, it is impossible to separate who we are from what we have endured." Her hands trembled slightly as she closed the report. "I know. That is why I must learn to trust again. But it is difficult. You ask for understanding, Kale, and I try, I truly do, but my heart is still cautious, afraid of being hurt once more." Kale stepped closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. "I will not ask you to forget. I only ask that you allow me to prove my love through actions, not words. That I show you, day by day that I am here, and that I have not lost sight of what matters most." For a long moment, Alara simply looked at him, seeing the vulnerability and strength intertwined in his expression. She wanted to believe him, to let the walls around her heart crumble, yet fear and caution held her back. Their conversation was interrupted by a distant cry from the castle courtyard. They rushed outside, hearts pounding, to find a group of scouts returning, their faces pale with urgency. "The northern border," one of them gasped. "They are moving faster than expected." "The enemy approaches," Kale's expression darkened. "Gather the soldiers, we leave at first light." He turned to Alara. "You should rest. The battle will demand more strength than you can imagine." Alara shook her head. "I am staying. I cannot leave you alone in this." Kale hesitated, the concern in his eyes betraying his calm exterior. "Very well, but promise me you will be careful." The night passed in restless preparation. Soldiers gathered, weapons were checked, and Kale moved with a steady authority that belied the turmoil in his heart. Alara remained close, assisting where she could, yet the fear in her chest never left. The forest had shown her truths, but this threat, felt more immediate, more dangerous. As dawn broke, the horizon burned with the soft glow of sunlight. The army moved forward, Kale leading with unwavering courage. Alara rode beside him, feeling the tension between them like a physical presence. Every glance exchanged was a mixture of trust and doubt, love and fear. The battlefield stretched before them, a vast expanse of open fields and treacherous terrain. The enemy forces appeared like a dark wave on the horizon, their banners flapping in the wind. Kale dismounted, placing a reassuring hand on Alara's arm. "Stay close," he instructed. "I cannot lose you, not again." Alara nodded, her own resolve firming. "I will follow you wherever this leads, but promise me, Kale, promise me we will face this together, not as ruler and subject, but as two hearts bound by truth." Kale's eyes softened, and for a fleeting moment the weight of the kingdom fell away, leaving only them, two souls intertwined by love, loss, and the hope of redemption. "I promise," he said quietly. The battle began with the clash of steel, the cries of soldiers, and the roar of horses. Kale moved like a force of nature, commanding the soldiers while protecting those around him. Alara stayed close, assisting where she could, her heart racing with fear and adrenaline. In the midst of the chaos, Kale faced the enemy commander, a man skilled in both strategy and deception. Their duel was fierce, each strike a testament to skill and determination. Kale fought not for victory alone, but to protect the kingdom, the people, and Alara herself. Alara watched from a distance, her heart swelling with admiration and fear. The man who had once betrayed her now fought with courage and honor, his actions proving the truth she had glimpsed in the forest. Yet even as he triumphed, the danger remained. The curse's shadow lingered, threatening to undo everything they had fought for. As the sun climbed higher, the enemy forces began to falter, their momentum broken by Kale's strategy and leadership. The soldiers of Dareth pressed forward, reclaiming ground that had seemed lost. Alara felt a sense of relief, yet the tension in her chest did not dissipate. Kale returned to her side, sweat and dirt on his face, his eyes scanning her with concern. "Are you unharmed?" he asked. "Yes," she replied, though her voice shook. "Thanks to you." He reached for her hand, and this time she allowed him to take it. The contact, simple and grounding, spoke of trust, understanding, and the fragile beginnings of forgiveness. The battle ended with the enemy retreating, the kingdom temporarily safe. Yet both Alara and Kale knew that the true battle was not over. The curse still loomed, secrets still threatened, and their hearts still carried the scars of the past. As the sun set and the battlefield grew quiet, Kale led Alara to a hill overlooking the lands they had defended. The wind carried the scent of earth and victory, but also the reminder of sacrifice. "Alara," Kale said, his voice low and filled with emotion, "today we survive together. Tomorrow we face what comes next. I cannot promise that it will be easy or that the past will not haunt us, but I can promise that I will stand by you, no matter what shadows we face." Alara looked at him, her heart aching with love and uncertainty. "I do not know what tomorrow will bring," she said softly, "but I do know that I am not turning away from you. Not now." Kale's eyes softened, the weight of years and choices momentarily lifted. "Then we take each day as it comes, together." The wind swept through the hilltop, carrying with it the scent of rain and the promise of challenges yet to come. They stood there hand in hand, watching the kingdom they had fought for, knowing that love and redemption were paths that required courage, patience, and unwavering faith. Yet as the first stars appeared in the evening sky, a shadow stirred in the distant forests, a whisper of the curse that still lingered. Their battle was won, but the war for hearts, trust, and the kingdom's soul was far from over. The castle of Dareth stood in silence as dawn broke over the horizon, the first light spilling across the kingdom they had fought to protect. Yet the calm was deceptive. Even after the battle, the shadow of the curse lingered, a dark pulse beneath the soil and stone, threatening to undo everything Kale and Alara had fought for. Alara stood on the balcony, the cool morning wind playing with her hair. She could see the distant forests, the lands beyond the castle walls, and in her heart she carried the memory of every choice, every sacrifice, every moment she had shared with Kale. The forest had shown her the truth, the battlefield had tested their courage, and now the final challenge awaited them, one that would demand not only their strength, but the deepest parts of their hearts. Kale approached quietly, his footsteps soft against the marble floor. His eyes, though weary, shone with determination. "Alara," he said, his voice low but steady, "the time has come. The source of the curse stirs. We must face it together or the kingdom and perhaps our hearts will not survive." Alara turned to him, her own resolve hardening. "Then we face it," she replied. "Together." They made their way to the citadel's hidden chamber, a place few had seen, filled with ancient symbols and relics that whispered of power long forgotten. At the center of the room lay an altar, dark as night, pulsing faintly with energy that seemed alive. Kale knelt beside it, placing his hands upon the cold stone, his expression a mixture of fear and determination. "The curse," he said quietly, "has grown stronger over the years. It feeds on fear, doubt, and regret. It will test every part of us, the choices we have made, the love we hold, and the trust we are willing to give. Only by facing it together can we hope to break it." Alara nodded, feeling the weight of their task. She could see the darkness swirling around them, tendrils of shadow that reached out like hungry hands. Her heart pounded, not from fear alone, but from the tension between them, the unspoken questions, the fragile trust they were building. Kale took her hand, holding it firmly, grounding them both. "Are you ready?" he asked. Alara drew a deep breath, meeting his gaze. "I am. I trust you, and I trust myself." Together they stepped toward the altar. The shadows surged, wrapping around them like a living storm. Kale raised his hands, chanting in a language older than the castle itself. The words carried power, shaping the darkness, challenging it. Yet even his strength was not enough. Alara felt the shadows brush against her, probing for fear. She clenched Kale's hand tighter, remembering every moment they had endured, the forest, the battlefield, the nights of uncertainty. The memories of betrayal still whispered in her mind, but they no longer controlled her. She focused on the present, on the trust they had rebuilt, and on the love that had endured despite everything. The darkness recoiled slightly, sensing resistance. Kale's voice grew stronger, the ancient words intertwining with the courage and determination in their hearts. The altar pulsed with light as the shadows writhed, twisting and screaming, yet gradually weakening. "Alara," Kale said, his voice strained but steady, "this is it. We must give everything we have. Our strength, our trust, our hearts. Only together can we end this." Alara nodded, her own voice firm as she joined him in the chant. The words flowed from her lips, ancient and powerful, shaping the darkness around them. She felt the curse pushing back, tugging at her fears, threatening to shatter the fragile bond between them. But she did not let go. She focused on Kale, on the years of struggle, on the love that had survived betrayal and danger. The shadows twisted violently, coiling around them, yet they held firm. Kale's eyes met hers, and in that moment everything became clear. The trust they had rebuilt, the courage they had found, and the power of a bond forged through trials. A blinding light erupted from the altar, engulfing the chamber. The shadows screamed and twisted, then shattered like glass, dissolving into the air. The curse had been broken. The room fell silent, the energy dissipating, leaving only the warmth of the first sunlight streaming through the windows. Kale sank to his knees, exhausted but victorious. Alara knelt beside him, her hands on his shoulders. "We did it," she whispered, her voice filled with awe and relief. Kale looked at her, his eyes glistening. "We did, together." For a moment they simply sat there, the weight of everything lifted, the silence around them full of unspoken emotions. They had faced the shadows, the curse, and the doubts that had haunted them both, and they had emerged stronger, not just as leaders, but as two hearts intertwined by trust, love, and understanding. "Alara," Kale said finally, his voice low and tender, "I know I cannot undo the past. I know the pain I caused you will never fully disappear. But I can promise you this. I will spend the rest of my days proving that love can endure, even when the world tries to tear it apart." Alara felt tears spill down her cheeks, the tension and fear of the past months giving way to relief and hope. She reached for his face, cupping it gently. "Kale, I have feared losing you again, but now I see that love is stronger than fear. I am ready to walk forward with you, not because the past is gone, but because we have faced it together." Kale's lips brushed hers in a gentle, tentative kiss, a promise rather than a declaration. It spoke of forgiveness, of healing, of the fragile beauty of hearts learning to trust again. The world outside the chamber could wait. In this moment, there was only them. As they rose and stepped out into the sunlight, the kingdom of Darath seemed brighter, the shadows of the curse lifted. Soldiers cheered as they saw Kale and Alara standing together, a symbol of hope and courage. Yet neither of them celebrated. Their victory was not in the applause of others, but in the knowledge that they had faced the darkness and emerged with their hearts intact. The days that followed were filled with rebuilding, strengthening the castle, restoring the lands, and healing the people. Kale and Alara worked side by side, their bond growing with each shared task, each moment of vulnerability and courage. The love between them was no longer tested by secrets or doubts, but strengthened by understanding and shared triumph. One evening, as the sun set in golden hues over the castle walls, Kale and Alara walked through the gardens, their hands intertwined. The flowers swayed gently in the breeze, and the air carried the faint scent of rain and earth. For the first time in years, they felt at peace, not because the world was without danger, but because they faced it together. "Alara," Kale said softly, stopping beneath a blooming tree, "I know our journey has been filled with shadows. Betrayal, fear, loss, but I also know this. Love is worth every struggle, every sacrifice, and I am willing to fight for it every single day as long as you are by my side." Alara looked at him, her heart full. "I know, Kale, and I am willing to walk this path with you. Together we can face whatever comes next, because we have faced the worst and we survived." Kale smiled, the weight of the past lifting from his shoulders, replaced by a quiet joy that only comes from shared resilience and trust. "Then let us begin anew," he said, his voice tender. "Not as the people we were, but as the ones we choose to become, stronger, braver, and together." The sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the castle and the kingdom beyond. The curse was gone, the shadows lifted, and a new chapter began, not just for the land, but for two hearts that had learned the true meaning of forgiveness, trust, and love. And as night fell and stars appeared one by one in the sky, Alara and Kale stood together, hand in hand, ready to face the future. Whatever trials awaited, they knew they would endure, for they had discovered the strength within themselves and in each other to overcome darkness and embrace the light.